Hello everyone, Tim the Train Guy here once again, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different from what I normally do. I asked you guys if you wanted to see a video like this, you said yes, and so here it is. This is a lore video for my fictional freelance railroad that I created for my HO scale model trains. It's called the Copper Valley Railway, and it's heavily inspired by various mining railroads found throughout Arizona. Also, fair warning, this is going to be a bit of a long video because I have written lore for this railway from 1870 up to the present day. And now, let's get into it. So, I got the idea for the Copper Valley Railway while watching a YouTube video about the lore of the Railway series written by Reverend Wilbert Awdry, and how he created the world that Thomas the Tank Engine and all his friends live in. In a similar fashion to Awdry, I have taken influence from real-world events with railroading in Arizona and the Southwest as a whole, and compiled them into a storyline for my fictional railroad. However, in my case, most of it came from the Magma Arizona Railroad, the Copper Basin Railway, and the Arizona Eastern Railway. Also, a quick side note, because I live in an apartment, I only have a 9-foot section of layout built. So most of the footage you see of the model trains running was filmed at Gilbert Model Railroad Club in Gilbert, Arizona. I'm also going to have some actual photos here of stuff that I used for inspiration, just to kind of give you some reference of what I'm talking about here. Also, some of the names of places that I mention in this video are the names of real places, however, they're not necessarily meant to be the same place. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into it. Our story begins in 1872 in the hills of the Arizona Territory. Though small-scale prospecting had been going on in this area since the days of Spanish conquistadors, industrial-scale mining would begin when the Arizona Copper Company established the Morenci Mine. They built a small rail line which would be worked by horses and mules to transport the ore. Meanwhile, the Southern Pacific Railroad began building a line through southern Arizona. They started building east from Yuma in 1877. In 1879, the Arizona Copper Company would place an order with the H.K. Porter Company for a small fleet of 040 steam locomotives to run on their 20-inch gauge railway. They also expand their rail network to connect the Morenci mine to a smelter in the town of Clifton, as well as to another mine in the town of Barton. The Southern Pacific Railroad reaches the city of Tucson in March of 1880, and in May of the following year they would meet up with the crew building west from El Paso, Texas. Meanwhile, the Arizona Copper Company would be making plans to build a standard gauge railroad south from Clifton to meet the Southern Pacific. The railroad was to be known as the Copper Valley Railway, and it was a subsidiary of the Arizona Copper Company. Due to the restrictive nature of the terrain, they would have to go slightly east into New Mexico, where they would meet the Southern Pacific in the town of Sandsburg. They also placed an order with the Baldwin Locomotive Works for two 280 steam locomotives. These engines would run the railway once it was completed. The railway would also run through the town of Agua Fria, a small farming town just a few miles south of Clifton. The Copper Valley Railway would reach Sandsburg, New Mexico in January of 1884, and would run their first train in February. Meanwhile, a company called the Arizona Mineral Belt begins building a line from the town of Copperhead north to the city of Flagstaff, where it would meet the Atlantic and Pacific Railroad main line. In 1887, the Interstate Commerce Act is signed into law by President Grover Cleveland, resulting in the formation of the Interstate Commerce Commission. The new laws would require the Copper Valley Railway to begin operating passenger services, which they would do in the form of twice-daily mixed trains. The Arizona Mineral Belt Railway's construction is stalled after they reach the Mogollon Rim, and the project is ultimately abandoned after they use up their remaining construction budget attempting to blast a tunnel. The Copper Valley Railway, naturally, begins making plans to construct their own line to Copperhead. Official construction would begin in March of 1892. They would build a line west from Sandsburg, New Mexico, running parallel to the Southern Pacific. The line would then go north to Copperhead. Construction of the line would be completed in December the same year. To cope with increasing traffic demands, the Copper Valley Railway purchases a 260 type steam locomotive secondhand from the Santa Fe. They also begin converting their steam locomotives to oil firing due to the fact that oil is much more readily available in the Southwest. In 1906, the Arizona Copper Company would construct a small fleet of electric switcher locomotives in-house for work at the Clifton smelter. In 1908, they would purchase a 3-truck Shea locomotive second-hand from a logging company in the Midwest. It would mostly be used for carrying heavy ore trains from the mine in Copperhead to the smelter at Clifton. In July of 1910, the bridge over the Agua Fria River collapses in a flash flood caused by a monsoon storm. Its reconstruction is finished August of that same year. On February 14, 1912, the Arizona Territory joins the United States of America as the 48th state, and the state capital is moved from Prescott to Phoenix. 1914 marks the beginning of the First World War, and even though the United States would not officially join until 1917, copper from the Morenci mine would be used to produce munitions for the Allies, and the war would be over by 1918. In 1919, the United States Congress would pass the 18th Amendment and the Volstead Act, which would make production, transport, and sale of alcohol illegal throughout the United States. Despite the new prohibition laws, many Americans still continue to drink alcohol illegally, and Agua Fria, Arizona became a hotbed for production of illicit moonshine. And the Copper Valley Railway has numerous close calls with moonshiners trying to evade police. In 1925, the Copper Valley Railway purchased a Doodlebug self-propelled rail car from EMC. Its lower cost of operation would allow them to run more frequent passenger services. In 1926, the Copper Valley Railway would construct a standard gauge line to the Morenci mine to cope with increasing demands. The 20-inch gauge line to Morenci would be pulled up. However, the line to the Barton mine would continue to operate for a few more years. In 1929, a catastrophic stock market crash would throw the United States and the world into the grips of the Great Depression. The Great Depression hits America hard, and 1 in 4 people would lose their jobs as a result. Many would travel around looking for work by illegally hopping aboard freight trains. The Copper Valley Railway had its fair share of hobo problems, and the traffic decrease was so hard on them that in 1935 they entered receivership. Also in 1935, the mine in Barton would be severely flooded, to the point where it would close down. This would also be the final nail in the coffin for the 20-inch gauge railway, which would be dismantled by 1936. However, 1 locomotive from the railway would be preserved at a park in Clifton. All other equipment would either be sold off, scrapped, or left abandoned. In 1937, the Morenci mine was converted from an underground mine to an open pit. And on September 1st, 1939, Germany and the Soviet Union would invade Poland, officially marking the beginning of the Second World War. On December 7, 1941, the Empire of Japan attacked the United States naval base at Pearl Harbor, and the United States is dragged into the Second World War as a result. And the Copper Valley Railway is busier than ever supplying copper for the war effort. Things slow down, however, after 1945 when the war ends. In 1947, the Arizona Copper Company would purchase a small fleet of Plymouth ML8 gasoline locomotives for work at the Morenci mine. In 1951, the Copper Valley Railway would acquire their first diesel locomotive in the form of a Baldwin DRS 66 1500. This locomotive, however, would prove unreliable. This would lead to the railway purchasing 4 Alco RS3 locomotives after hearing about their success, and in 1959, they would begin retiring their steam locomotives. With the Copper Valley Railway's new Alco diesel locomotives proving successful, they begin phasing out their steam locomotives. Engine number 1 would make its last run on April 28, 1961. Fortunately, number 1 would be put on static display near the railroad station in Clifton. Engine number 2 would be cut up for scrap following a derailment. Engine number 3 was sold to a scrapyard in Tempe, Arizona in 1964. And engine number 4, the Shea, would be hidden in the back of the repair shop. Declining passenger traffic would also lead to the railway's Doodlebug being retired, its last run being in 1968. The Copper Valley Railway would continue running mixed trains until 1969, when they too were discontinued. On May 1st, 1971, the U.S. government launches the National Railroad Passenger Corporation, better known as Amtrak, to take over passenger services on eligible routes. In 1977, engine number 3, which had miraculously survived scrap until now, was purchased by the city of Scottsdale and put on static display in a park. In 1983, the Arizona Railway Museum is founded in Chandler, Arizona by a group of local rail fans. Also around this time, many railroads in the United States begin operating steam programs, and the Copper Valley Railway announces its own plan for a steam program in 1986. They reacquire engine number 1 from the town of Clifton and have it restored to operation to run a monthly excursion train known as the Copper Star. However, the town of Clifton asked the railroad if they had another engine they could donate to put in number 1's place. Around this time, management had discovered engine number 4 hidden in the back of the repair shed under a tarp, and so it was put on display in number 1's place. In 1989, the Arizona Copper Company would purchase a small fleet of EMD SW9s secondhand for work at the Morenci mine and the Clifton smelter. In 1990, the Copper Valley Railway purchased 2 SD40-2 diesel locomotives second-hand from Union Pacific in an attempt to modernize their fleet. They were numbered 2017 and 2018. They would take over more of the heavier trains, while the Alco RS3s, which somehow were still in service at this point, continued handling lighter ones. Also in 1990, 3 of the Arizona Copper Company's 20-inch gauge steam locomotives were found abandoned on a hillside near some old mine workings. One of them was put on display outside the company office in Morenci, another was sent to a museum in Phoenix, and the third was sent to the Arizona Eastern College Discovery Park. In September of 1996, the Southern Pacific Railroad is purchased by the Union Pacific Railroad. In 2005, Copper Valley Railway number 1 was sent to the Strasburg Railroad to have an overhaul done. The work would be completed by 2007 and number 1 would be back on the rails. In 2008, the Arizona Copper Company retired their Plymouth locomotives after having them in storage for about a year, one of which was sent to the Arizona Railway Museum in Chandler. In 2012, the state of Arizona celebrates 100 years of statehood. To commemorate the occasion, Copper Valley Railway No. 1 has the Arizona flag painted on its tender. In 2016, the Union Pacific Railroad reacquired Big Boy No. 4014 and had it restored to operation to run excursion trains. The work would be completed by 2019, and Union Pacific would take 4014 on a restoration tour, part of which ran through southern Arizona. During the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, the Copper Valley Railway temporarily suspended operation of the Copper Star excursion train, though it would slowly return over the following years. In 2025, a YouTuber and railroad enthusiast from Arizona would begin creating custom models of the Copper Valley Railway's engines and rolling stock and begin posting videos of them on YouTube. And in 2026, that same YouTuber would make a video describing the entire history of the Copper Valley Railway. And there you have it, folks, the entire lore for my fictional railway. At least, that's all I have written so far. I hope you all enjoyed, and maybe even got something you can use for your own fictional railway. I'll be interested to hear what you all think of it in the comments. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching. I'm Tim the Train Guy, and bye for now.